Have you ever heard of the word intersex? This refers to the experiences of people who are born with a body that does not meet the normative definition of male and female. Out of fear of stigmatization, discrimination, rejection, and bullying, most parents with intersex children in Zambia contribute to their children living with hidden lives. My name is Francesca Banda, and welcome to this week's episode of The Digest. So imagine a mother carrying a child for 9 months has undergone a scan to know what child to expect. The doctors after the scan tell this mother that she is expecting a boy or a girl. And imagine the smile on her face as she looks at her husband after receiving such news. 9 months later, she delivers this child who does not meet the normative narrative, male or female. This is the plight of a parent with an intersex child.
The World Health Organization describes an intersex person as someone born with physical or biological sex characteristics that do not fit the traditional definitions of male or female. Intersex people are often considered part of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender movement because they are sexual minorities. But in Zambia, where homosexuality is illegal, this further complicates their lives, as they are sometimes threatened with arrest, whether or not they identify with the LGBT community. The Digest caught up with Mary, who recently had an intersex child.
I went to do my scan. They said you're going to have a baby boy. So I was expecting a baby boy, and unfortunately I had an intersex child. I did not know anything because when my son was born, even at the hospital where I gave birth to him, they didn't say he was intersex. They didn't see any deformities on him. They only said everything was normal. I was discharged. I came home. That's when I saw things were not that normal. So I took him back. To UTH. That's where they said, no, this child is born intersex. I thought it was hernia. Because the other side was swollen. So I had to take him back to the hospital where he was born. That's when they said, no, it's not hernia, but he was born intersex and he's not fully developed. At first, it was very depressing, honestly speaking. I got to a point whereby I was very much depressed. I really didn't know how to go about it. But for my husband, he was saying, no, you go back to the hospital, maybe they will help you, they will assist you from there. That's when I went back. They said, no, you have to do a karyotype test. We did a karyotype test and we're still waiting for results. I think it's the chromosomes, whether he has got XX chromosomes or he has got XY. So that they should determine whether he's carrying the male genes or the female genes. Mm-hmm. It was not easy, but I thank God because from UTH there was a nurse who directed me to the Intersex Society of Zambia. So when I met with the Intersex president, that's how we got talking. I'm sure he did some few counseling, encouraged me from there. I interacted with different women. That's how it helped me, just to get back to normal and accept the situation the way it is.
Dr. Bruce Volani is the head of the unit, Pediatric and Neonatal Surgery. This unit deals with all surgeries of children, newborn children in the first month of life, and intersex children.
Sex is generally determined by genetics. In other words, the genetic makeup that one gets from their mother and father, and this comes together. And simply a female individual will have chromosomes that, I will not go into the details, but chromosomes that say, that show that they have certain sex, they have a complement of genetic material which defines who they are going to be, how they will look, and so on. And then the sex is determined by a particular group of 2 chromosomes. And in the female, there will be in the shape of an X. So there will be 2 X's next to each other, and those are called the sex chromosomes. In the male, one is an X and one looks like a Y. So in the male we call it XY, in the female we call it XX. Those who determine what sex is going to be there. That's one of the things that determines sex. Other things that may determine sex are hormonal situations. What can I say? The genetic material is not only found in those that determines sex is not only found in those particular chromosomes, but maybe in other parts of the genetic material that determines the sex, so to say. And so you can have a problem where one has this male and female sex chromosomes, but then the other factors that determine that the other genetic material may be abnormal, and therefore that will make the growth or the way that the development takes place abnormal. Other things that could cause a problem in the determination of the sex or the development of the sex would be where you have the production of hormones that are going to bring out the maleness of an individual. And this starts even before the child is born. I'm sure, Makondwani, you know that when a child is growing and they reach teenage years, then they'll start becoming hoarse. If it's a male, they start having a hoarse voice. If it's a female, they start having other features. The voice is more squeaky, the breasts will form, and so on. There are hormones that determine those sort of developments. So other areas within their genetic material which determine the way the hormones will form and the amount of hormones and so on also have a bearing on what sex one will have. Then there is also where these hormones are going to work to cause those effects to take place, that maleness or that femaleness. Sometimes the target areas or the target cells, if you like, do not respond the way they should, or perhaps you have insufficient of the hormone produced to bring about that effect. Yeah, so they are the external reproductive organs which are visible to the outside, which we would call the ones which seem to have a problem, but they are actually inner reproductive organs. Things such as the prostate in man, the uterus in the female, and so on, which you can't see, but which are inside the body and which you can see to see what is happening inside using special investigations such as ultrasound and CT scan and so on. In the past, before those were available, you had to do an operation to physically look inside to see what is there. So in that sense, surgery would help you to determine what sex this individual could be or ought to be.
Intersex Society of Zambia is an intersex-led NGO focused on empowering intersex people in Zambia through awareness raising and advocating for the human rights of intersex people. In Zambia, the exact number of intersex people is unknown since no research on the topic has been conducted. Paso Sakala, founder and executive director of Intersex Society of Zambia, gives statistics of registered intersex members the organization has so far since 2018.
So currently the society has about 57 members, and the age groups they range from, I don't know if there's 0 years now, it's from months actually, from less than a year old to somewhere around 40. So that is the age group range. So yes, we have parents of intersex persons who are also members of Intersex Society of Zambia. In that, you will find that, especially for children, you find that we cannot directly interact with the children, so we directly interact with the parents. But also, even for those who are older, we want to make sure that their families are part of them as well, just to build that support system around them.
We have not done any study to actually document how the numbers have gone up. But I think towards the end of 2010 or so, we had encountered, I think, close to about 20 or so patients. But the numbers now are much higher, probably because of awareness and the fact that in the past, I think people have felt that these are conditions which can't really be dealt with, and there was shame and so on, and they were hidden in the community. But now a lot of people are coming up, some in their older age, and so we are seeing a lot more. So we have, and I have personally seen quite a number of individuals with this intersex condition.
I've gotten to understand the society out there thinks it's a case. No, it's something spiritual, but I've gotten to understand it's just normal, like any other breath. It's not really different because it's just like any other baby, any other child. You raise them the way you want them to be raised, you love them equally, and there's not much difference because it's also a child. I would say, as of now, I would want to start working, but I'm looking at a situation whereby I employ a maid to start looking after my son. What am I going to explain? Am I going to have someone who's going to have a lot of questions? Am I going to have someone who's going to be a gossip? I start gossiping about my son. Even if I say I put him in school, are the teachers going to be that capable of taking care of him and accepting his situation? Those are the kind of questions that I'm having. Those are the kind of difficulties that I'm having of late. I cannot start working because of my son, because of society, so to say. And are the society going to be accepting him the way he is? Is that person who is going to come to look after him going to be a person who's going to understand and say, oh, he's also a child like any other? Or is going to criticize the situation of my son? Yeah, my family, my husband's family, they're all aware, and I thank God because I was given a family that understands a lot of situations, and being me, I'm young and they're older than me, they have come across such situations and they've been reading my shoulder and they've been encouraging, saying, no, it's just like a child like any other, you also grow like the way these guys are growing, so just accept the way it is and just be happy because it's also a gift from God. I've just realized in life we need to accept what God gives us because we don't determine what we receive as parents. We just wait upon God's time. So just acceptance. I would say I've accepted. My family has accepted. We've all accepted because it's not the first time. I'm not the first person to be in this situation, and I'm not going to be the last person.
It does help a lot actually. So you find that that child has not yet reached the age of consent. So you find that whatever decisions have to be made at that time, they will be made by the parents. So we interact with these parents so that we make sure that the decisions being made for this child are in the best interest of the child. So we find that it's very important that we interact with parents, because at that point they are the decision makers. They decide for the child until the child is able to reach an age where they can consent or make their own choices. So there are various decisions. Let's say, for example, when a child is born, we know that when they are recording the details of the child, you find that because an intersex person, you find that the law doesn't recognize us, and that's a fact. So we are now forced to choose between the two binaries which are there. So in terms of the sex, we only have two binaries recognized by society in Zambia, which is male and female. When it comes to the gender, it's still the same. In as much as when you talk about the sex, intersex persons are neither male nor female. But when you go to society, we know that gender is a social construct. Society expects that you should behave in a certain way. So a gender has to be chosen. So you find that parents will have to choose how they are going to raise that child, either male or female. Though in most cases, we ask parents so that they can just observe, not necessarily beating the child to say, we assigned you female, you should behave this way. Because we don't know what will happen when they reach puberty, what will be the dominant gender. Because we don't say dominant sex anyway, because the sex will always remain that we are in between. But in terms of the gender, because when we have two binaries, at this point, we are forced to choose between either of them.
There is a way in which you want, once the child is born, to immediately be told, this is a boy, this is a girl. And I don't know if you're a parent yourself. You have children, I'm sure. As you are waiting in the waiting room, your wife is delivering, or in the case of at the village setup, there's a hut where the delivery is going on, and then everyone else is waiting outside. And then once the baby comes out, it's a girl and everyone is happy, or it's a boy. Yes, we wanted a boy because it's going to take over the family and blah, blah, blah. So there is that expectation, the societal sort of expectation. So when that expectation is not met, in other words, you don't know what to say about this child, then it becomes a problem to explain to everyone what's going on, and the child the parents will sort of hide away the child. Yeah, so not really that they would quickly want to rush into assigning a gender, but just that they don't know how, or we wouldn't know how to deal with if we were parents born in that sort of situation. We wouldn't know what to do with this child. And worse still, when they grow up and they start interacting with other children.
We cannot come to that conclusion minus the results. So I'm only praying for the results. If the results are out, they're going to tell us what gender this is going to be or she's going to be. And then we are going to accept what the results are going to show, because now that's the only election that we're waiting for. Mm-hmm. Because at this age, it's very too late for us to conclude on a gender or something.
Have you ever thought of surgery for a child?
Surgery, it was, the doctor said no, he's going to do a collection surgery. But my husband is saying, no, it's just fine, that's the way it is. He doesn't need any surgery. Mm-hmm. Accepting, we're going to accept it the way it is. Mm-hmm. And then we are only waiting for the results so that we know on which gender he's on and on which gender to raise him. So
intersex surgery can be for various reasons. Like I said at the beginning, or earlier, it can be to help make a diagnosis. You do an operation to look at what is inside, and that would help you. But also, surgery for intersex may involve, after you have, of course, defined what gender you want to assign. So assigning of gender means that you have discussed with the parents, you have discussed as the medical team, and you've probably, depending on the age of the child, you have discussed with the child or the patient, and agreed that based on the biochemical or the scientific problem that we have seen, and also what can be best to assign the particular individual in terms of a workable sex that they can have, then that's when we go ahead and do surgery. And this can either be to make one more male or make one more female.
When is the right time? So the right time is when the child is able to reach an age where they can consent, either to have that surgery or not. So it's not every intersex person who would want to undergo surgery. Some would want to live the way they were born. They don't want anything to be altered on their body. They are okay just the way they were born. So it's just about how comfortable someone will feel if they want to undergo surgery, or if they will not. It's not mandatory that they will need to undergo surgery.
No, we have hospital counselors, but hospital counselors are more trained with many other conditions, loss of a loved one, illness, and so on. So some of these complex conditions, they may not be able to counsel the parents the way they are. So we do need to develop counselors who are articulate in the areas of intersex, to be able to explain what it is. Yes, we as clinicians may explain, but sometimes it comes out better when someone who is a counselor takes on the parents and explains to them better, so that they understand their condition, and then they can articulate to the parents about in a simpler way how this condition comes about and so on, and then that brings about better compliance and better, I would say, adherence to treatment and better understanding of their situation, so that they sometimes don't think that we are taking too long to, for instance, assign gender and so on.
Okay, currently, as Intersex Society of Zambia, we have support groups. So we believe peer-to-peer kind of learning is also good, and people are able to learn. You know, when parents are raising an intersex child, they think they are the only one who has an intersex child. But when they meet other parents and they are able to share experiences, they come to know that they are not the only one. And sometimes people will go to an extreme of thinking that the variation their child has is extreme, but when they interact with other parents, they will come to understand that, in fact, their child's variation is even better than the other one. But overall, it's about being able to exchange knowledge and see how others have been able to raise children, because we are dealing with intersex children who've got different age ranges. So for those who are older, for example, those who've raised children who are over the age of 30, they can be able to give an experience of how they raised their child to reach that age, especially for those whose children haven't even reached the age of 5. I think most of the time it's just about a word to policymakers, a word to society, and overall a word to the intersex community themselves. So for society, you know, these are issues which affect everyone, because most of the time I've seen if someone is not directly affected, they think it doesn't concern them. But they only want to react when it hits close to home, which is not a good thing. For as long as it affects society, I think everyone should play a role in making sure that we create an enabling environment where intersex persons can also be able to thrive and also be able to navigate the spaces of society without being discriminated or stigmatized. Then for policymakers, for them they need, because these things, if intersex persons are going to be included in policies, it takes them to push for policies and laws which are inclusive of this community. And we've been asked about numbers. I think we can also push for example, the census. I was just hearing that the census, I was even wondering how I'll be counted, because for me, when it comes to the sex marker, I'm not male, I'm not female. So I don't know how they are going to record that. I was just wondering if that, in terms of the census. So all in all, what I'm saying is we need to push for laws which are inclusive of intersex persons, because whatever service we are going to talk about, be it health, be it education, it takes policies. For example, intersex persons cannot change their names on their certificates, because Examination Council of Zambia will tell you that their policy does not allow. And if we've got people in Zambia who are intersex, how is government catering for them? How is government making sure that whatever policies are being enacted are inclusive of this community? Yeah, and when it comes to the intersex persons, they are human beings just like anybody else. They've got the capabilities just like anybody else. They can be anything they want to be in life, be it an engineer, be it a doctor. Whatever dreams they want to achieve, they are achievable. It's up to them. For me, I always say your imagination is your limit. They just need to go out there, explore, be able to dream big and fight to make sure that their dreams comes to reality. We are all wonderfully and beautifully made in the image of God. I believe no one managed to create a human being, it's only God. And for him to have allowed for an intersex person to be born, he should have had a purpose for it.
The other thing which maybe we should have had at the beginning was to differentiate LGBTQ from intersex. Most people think intersex just and lump it all together with LGBTQ, but LGBTQ is basically lesbians, gays, transgender, and queer. Queer just more or less is the same as gay. So those are people who have a normal gender at birth, but they are unhappy with their gender. Whether as they are growing up they have this identity which they say, yes, I'm female, everything is okay, all the hormones are okay, but I feel like I'm a male and I want to be a male. And so they go that direction. And so you get lesbians and gay, as it were, homosexuals. And then the transgender who want to go beyond just the identity, where they also now want to start doing things to their body to make it more male or more female. And they will ask for surgery and so on. So when you compare that to intersex individual is born with a problem, and we have to deal with it. While on this other big group, they essentially don't have this problem, which needs us to correct. But it's more of a again, I'll use the word dysphoria. It's more like a disagreement with their identity, which they already have, and they feel more comfortable with another identity. And others have come up with several types of identities, like a neutral gender, a bisexual gender, a male gender, a female gender, or identity rather. Female identity, male identity, and transgender identity, and so on and so forth, and various classifications, and so on. But basically all I'm trying to say is that we shouldn't confuse the intersex condition, which is a medical condition,
Now, being intersex is not a disability or a curse. An intersex person is in fact a complete human being as everyone else, and it's time that society accepts them as such. Policymakers must amend laws that will help easily identify intersex persons and not have them choose between the two binaries. Shall we not continue to have intersex persons and parents have to hide and live life in secrecy? Remember to send us your feedback by emailing us at documentaries@diamondtvzambia.com, or alternatively, you can leave us an inbox on our Facebook page, Diamond TV Zambia. Thank you so much for the pleasure of your company. Goodbye.